Hello there, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and of course I'm your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now if you've been following my progress here at Oak Camp over the last 2 weeks, you'll have seen that one of the tools I've been using almost in every function that I do up here has been my knife, of course. Absolutely essential when you go into the bushcraft world to have a good, solid, reliable knife. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Mackenzie, who is the designer of the wonderful Fitzroy knife that I've been using during my Oak Camp experience. So welcome, Mackenzie. Welcome to Oak Camp.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your channel.
Yeah. What do you think of Oak Camp?
It's really nice, isn't it? I mean, you couldn't get better than this. The weather's clear blue skies. Well, start of June. Fantastic.
I couldn't have worked it out better, I don't think. I mean, the moment I put this tent up, it hasn't rained.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's a little bit dry now. But hey, it's all good fun. I'm not going to knock that. I'm not going to be complaining about it being too dry in the UK. So really, the knife, all right, the knife which I have in my bag. I know you've brought some along as well to show us. The Fitzroy knife has been my sort of constant companion here for the last 2 weeks, and it's a little different to your standard bushcraft knife in a number of ways, particularly the blade obviously and the grind. But before we talk about the sort of specifics of the knife, I think I'd love to find out a bit more about your journey on the knife sort of trajectory which has brought us here today, and you being the sort of the how would you describe yourself as a bladesmith, a manufacturer? Well, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'd probably say, well, I am a bladesmith, because I actually make my own knives as well. Do? But I would say I just call myself the owner of Fitzroy knives, because I pretty much do everything. So, you know, I try and do the marketing, I do the designing, I do the product testing, shipping, talking to communication on the website. So it's basically anything to do with Fitzroy knife is me.
So you're a one-man band?
One-man band, yes. Very small company.
And it's not your full-time gig, is it? So
no,
it occupies every moment of your time.
Yeah, well, it's my sort of second business. So I have a first business which is keeps the roof over the head, and this is something that I'm trying to push forward and develop. Yeah. Really. So yeah, a bit of a background.
Tell me the journey
about me. Well, by my age, you're going to realise I grew up in was a sort of young lad in the mid-80s, and I don't know about you, but I don't know, you're probably a little bit older than me, maybe.
Well, I don't know. I haven't got a grey beard.
Yeah. Don't let the grey beard fool you. I'm not that old, but anyway. So I grew up mid-80s. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't an Instagram.
I remember that. Yes,
there wasn't Bushcraft.
Nope.
There was Lofty Wiseman, the SAS Guide to Survival, and Eddie McGee. Yeah. I can't remember what his book is called. Can you remember? You probably.
I can't. What I remember from that era, I don't remember, is it the Bush Tucker man, the Australian guy.
Yeah.
He is, other than obviously probably the one we're going to talk about in a minute. Yeah. Uncle Ray. But that's the one I can remember most as a kid. You know, when he was out in the bush and sort of snaring kangaroos and things.
Yeah, I don't really, you know, my TV sort of stuff, I don't remember seeing him, but there was Lofty Wiseman. I remember the book.
Yeah, he's still around.
I was 8, and I think I got that book for Christmas, and I read it until it disintegrated. Because it wasn't the hardback, the nice hard, it was the soft back, probably the cheapest one my parents could find for Christmas. Yeah, and I read it and it just fell apart. Yeah. So my sort of start is growing up in rural Cheshire.
Yeah. So
on the edge of the Peak District, not far from Macclesfield.
Very nice.
Quite a free childhood, you know, with fields behind the house, that kind of thing. And my dad was principally a fisherman and, you know, a rough shooter. So he'd go out shooting game and things like that.
For dinner?
For dinner, yeah. And so we always had a knife. Yeah. And I was often with him, you know, being his little gun dog really, fetching things, or, you know, Dad, I want to go fishing. Yeah. So you know, there's always a bit of sea fishing. Maybe you might prep the bait. So knives were, from a young age, I always had some kind of knife, a little pen knife, an opinel or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And that sort of spurred my interest. You know, and then as you get older, I did the Duke of Edinburgh's award through school, did gold all the way through to gold.
Oh, you did gold.
Yeah, and then
quite a rare thing.
And then got into still interested in the field sport side of thing and the more in the woods, but also got into mountaineering and climbing and that kind of thing. So that sort of led me down a route of having an interest in quite, in a technical sport, climbing, mountaineering, but also having I like sitting in the woods. I like my axe. I like the very bushcraft side of things.
Yeah.
And then moving forward from there, I sort of did the university thing, and then which was on very close to Dartmoor. So I ended up being really good friends with a mate who similar interests, climbing, that kind of thing, bit of bushcraft. We spent quite a lot of time on Dartmoor, bivvying out, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just got a really good grounding in the outdoors. Fast forward to probably like 2006. Well, let's track back to, the scene.
Yeah.
Mr. Mears sort of appears. I don't know. Do you remember country tracks?
Do you know what?
So,
I can't
was it
really.
Tracks or country tracks?
Yeah, it was on Country Fire, wasn't it? It was an offshoot of Country Fire.
I don't know if it was its own little 20-minute programme, but Ray Mears used to do a little segment of it, and this was before he was particularly famous. And he would do something like, I'm going to do tracking, and we at uni, it's great.
Yeah.
We thought, this is brilliant. Who is this character? And then he sort of carried, didn't he? Got his own shows, and he is the sort of father of the new school of bushcraft.
He is. He still is.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the Bushcraft show the Sunday before last.
Yeah.
And he made a guest appearance, and he is the rock star.
Yeah.
Of the outdoor world. I mean, people were swooning over the guy.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a lecture in Cardiff with him. Probably like 2006. And it was packed.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And always sort of, the question always gets, what's your best knife? And he always says, the one you've got with you. Yeah. I just love it. It's great. And it's true. So I don't know, I'd had a few, I've got a few knives and things like that, and I really liked, the Woodlaw, the Allen, is it the Allen Wood?
That was about 300 quid, wasn't it? I remember thinking when that first came out, wow, people pay that much for a knife?
Yeah, and I had probably like some Opinels, a few sort of small sheath knives, that kind of thing. Made myself one from, you could buy blanks. I think you can still buy blanks.
Yeah, you can put your own scales on and things. Can't
yeah, and I'd done that, and it'd gone quite well. And then I looked at the Woodlaw. I said, I really want one of those. Yeah. I looked at the price. I can't afford that.
There was a huge waiting list.
Yeah, huge waiting list. Can't afford it. So I just sort of thought, do you know what? I'm pretty handy. I'm going to see what I can do, and then bought a little belt grinder.
Wow.
Some files. And then I basically got an angle grinder, bought a couple of pieces of tool steel, 4mm 01 tool steel, shaped the knife, ground it through, in a vise, because I had a few tools, and then heat treated it in an old barbecue.
Wow.
And then
it really is back to basics.
Yeah,
it is possible then.
Oh, it's really possible. A lot of it is quite basic in some respects. So heat treated it in an old barbecue with a fat induction fan made from one of those little plug-in pumps that you do airbeds with.
Oh yeah. I know them.
On a bit of conduit, into got it white hot, and then you get the magnet on some long pliers. Oh yeah, it's non-magnetic, and quenching the oil. You learn tricks like, oh yeah, you've got to get the oil up to a certain temperature. But basic, made a knife, added some scales, made two, one for me, one for my mate that I mentioned earlier, and then that was it. I was away, then you sort of increase your tools, and I ended up buying a custom-made grinder belt with like a big belt sander. I've got a Everheat oven now. You go through it all. So I sort of playing around with that kind of thing, very basic, and then I decided just after 2008, because of the recession, when we had the financial crash. Yeah. I went to about 2010. I went to live in Scotland, on the west coast of Scotland, for 2 years.
Nice.
And out in the middle of nowhere, completely changed. Doing a bit of crofting, exploring, living out in the wilds on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula for 2 years. Yeah, and that was where I sort of knew I wanted to design my own knife to be the companion that will kind of do it all.
Yeah.
Good at food prep. So I started the process there. Then came back 2014. Right, I'm going for it. And I started the process of the knife that you have.
Oh yeah.
This is the original prototype.
Right.
My original plan was I wanted British manufacturer. So I wanted it to be a British knife, made in Britain, my design, and that was almost impossible.
I bet it is, yeah.
You know, it was fraught with, like, no one would manufacture those. I couldn't get one person to manufacture the whole thing to my design, so it was all like, I'll send that out to this company that would do the CNC machining for that, someone else would do the blade grinding, someone else would do the heat treatment, and it just became cost prohibitive, really. So, but what I knew was I had a proof of concept knife, which
absolutely, and it doesn't look that much different, actually.
Well, it's not much different, really. I mean, you can see
it's the same blade shape, isn't it? Just a little bit
almost
of
the same, but tweaked to make it better in the hand, and the fixings are better laid
finessed,
out.
So you can see the evolution from that original one. Which isn't that great, actually. So you got a good idea from the very beginning.
Yeah, and the shame about these was I've got probably 100 of these as blanks, and they're rare. I don't know if you can see they're actually Damascus.
Oh, right.
which was.
So you went to town on it.
Yeah, I really wanted them to be like as good as
a sort of signature line or something along.
Well, I don't know. So that is how I came up with the Fitzroy Bushcraft knife.
Wow. So it really is starting from zero.
Starting from zero.
And acquiring the skills.
The skills. You know, a question that people have asked, well, why don't you just manufacture your own custom knives? Now, I'm a busy father.
It'd be one a week, wouldn't it? That's the problem.
Well, it's not even that. You know, before I had kids, it was I could make. You know, I did have a lot of knives coming out. I was doing some really nice kitchen knives for gifts and things like that, and it was great. But I found with it was what I wanted to do is be able to provide that sort of custom design, but not be like, oh, I got a 9-month waiting list, or.
Well, half those things are probably manufactured to get this impression of, scarcity, aren't they? That's how they do these things. So,
what I want to do is introduce something at a price point that worked, a high quality product that I think people would really benefit from. And that, I think I've achieved that in some respects.
It certainly works well. I mean, I was chatting to you before we came up, and I said I've put the knife to the test here this last week. I mean, it's been a new knife to me, and I've been cooked every meal with it. I've started every fire with it because I've been using the fat wood sort of method with the ferro-cerium rod to get it started. It's never failed, to be fair. And the knife, I haven't touched the edge. The edge retention is superb. And I have really used it 5, 6, 7 times every day. And that's for the best part 2 weeks.
You've got the N690 one, haven't you?
Yes, the stainless steel
one. That steel, I think, is really superb. But it seems to be a. I think you can only really get it in Italy where these are manufactured. It seems to be their signature steel.
Right.
Which go on.
No, I was going to ask you about the journey of the knife. Really. Well, the Italian angle, because I know it's from Maniago, isn't it, where you produce them? How did you choose that?
Well, I spent. You've probably done the same, researching things. You spent hours on the internet, you're there, you're sending people emails. I went down trying to find, I'll just put this down. I'll try and find a British manufacturer. You send people email, not interested, no thank you.
Really?
Because
this country's got such a reputation for edged weapons, isn't it? Sheffield particularly.
Yeah, well, Sheffield is where I was the first choice. So then I looked at the batching knives where blades get water jetted, they go out to someone else, someone heat treats them, they get ground, they come back to me, someone else produces the scales, I then put it all together.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It sounds like a lot of work, and the cost versus the amount of work going in, you just can't, you are custom knife level cost for something that actually isn't a custom knife.
No.
So I did my research, went out there and sent some emails out to people. Ooh. And I found out that a couple of the manufacturers in Italy will manufacture to customers' designs, and that was how I did it. So it was a case of going out, right, send me a test knife in the steels, and then I got them and I put them through the paces. And I was like, I like the steels. Here's my design, CAD'd, full 3D model of it. Produce me a sample. And then I can test it, and that's how it went.
So really. How was the testing process? What did you put it through? Everything, is it?
Everything, battening, because we haven't really touched upon why it's not a it's a kind of non-traditional.
Yes,
bushcraft
well, we'll
knife.
come to that, yeah. That's
So-
probably a good time, because when I got it, you know, your initial thought with the bushcraft knife, they tend to have a Scandinavian grind, don't they?
They do,
With a sort
yeah.
of concave
Yeah.
grind.
Which
I guess the thinking of that is the nimbleness, perhaps,
I think
easier.
it's primarily the Scandi grind works really well with carving and wood.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's very chisely.
Yeah, you can get in there for the feather
Yeah.
sticks and things, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely dreadful for any food prep.
No.
And let's be honest.
That's what we do most.
Most knives in the outdoors are used for, slicing up a piece of salami, or I don't know, slicing up a vegetable. But they are.
You're probably
they are.
right. Yeah.
They are.
For the most people, they're not actually lighting fires with them, are they? You know.
Yeah, and with Scandi grinds, you try and do things like, I don't know, prep any game. They're really difficult to prep.
Yeah.
With any game.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do with this was create a knife which is actually good at everything. And that's why I went with the flat grind as opposed to a Scandi grind. Part of me was, and quite a sharp tip for a bushcraft knife, because you for the fine work and things like that. But what I wanted to do is when I got the original, was actually really hammer it and see if it stood up to it, and yeah, it does, and that seems
Absolutely.
to be the benefit of the steel, because even you probably battened
I have,
with it.
yeah.
And it's,
Pretty much everything you see there. Well, if I haven't used the axe on, I've used the knife to do so.
and it still works well.
It does. The edge retention is superb on the stainless steel. I don't know whether it's the N690, is it?
That's the N69. N690 is the stainless, and the D2 is the.
I like the way you finished it as well, with the sort of bead blasting, because the thing with the stainless steel knife, it doesn't stay shiny for long, does it?
No.
You know, if you're using it properly, and the fact that bead blasted look is, I think, more aesthetically pleasing in the long term as well.
It's actually, and it's a tougher. You're not going to look at it and go, oh, come on, my finish has gone.
And you feel
on
like you got a bit more traction with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a nicer finish to the knife. No, I've really loved using it, actually. Right. So that was your initial thought from the beginning. Go for the flat grind for its inherent characteristics as a sort of jack of all trades bushcraft knife.
Yeah.
And it works really well. So you can hardly argue with the outcome of that. No.
Yeah, I think it does. Maybe I'm biased, but I think it does lots of the genuine tasks that you would do in the outdoors well. It might not be as good at doing everything, but that's kind of if you're
a bushcraft knife in itself is a compromise, isn't it? Because it's one knife to do the job of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Because you're only going to carry one.
Exactly.
So this is just a different variation of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But are there any other characteristics that you thought, if I was going to design a knife from scratch, this is definitely what I want to see on this piece? Is there anything that you were able to incorporate in there?
Well, what I try to do is there's some very traditional looking bushcraft blades, and they are from really good custom makers, and they're amazing. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got the Mora, the Frost, with the plastic handles, which are
got a few of them.
Fantastic for what they are. I've got a couple of. I use as spares that if you're out and about, you can lend one to a friend who, if you go out in the woods together or something.
It's only a tenner if you lose it as well.
And they're great, but you will snap them off with a handle, because they're not.
Yeah, it only goes in a little way, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is fine. But what I wanted to do is not be in a position where you're going to be precious. So one of the testing was I just left a blade blank in the rain for 2 weeks. It didn't rust. So, whereas some of my custom knives are made in high carbon tool steel, literally you just look at them, they rust. A wet day, you've got that, I don't know, UK, you wouldn't have it on your belt wandering around on your wherever. You might have it in the top of your rucksack where you know where it is. You get wet, you come back, and your blade's rusting.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want, isn't it?
Yeah, so what I wanted was something that was robust. You didn't have to worry about it. It would stand up to the weather, salt water, and a bit of getting hammered, really, and not worrying.
No, it certainly does that. It certainly does that. But you also produce it in high carbon steel as well, don't you? It's
a high carbon steel, but it's very rust impervious.
Right.
So it is a high carbon steel, but it has the characteristics that of D2R. It doesn't really rust to the same degree.
The benefit of high carbon steel is it gets a better edge.
It will
and
probably.
It's better with a ferro rod, isn't it, to get the sparks going. I've heard that, but I haven't experienced it myself. I tend to find they're about the same.
Yeah, I don't tend to use
the knife anyway.
I'm not an advocate of using knives on ferro rods because if you're out in the woods and you suddenly, get your knife out to strike your ferro rod, you put your knife down and the light's failing, you might lose your knife.
True.
So that's why with the ferro rods, I think a ferro rod and striker, it seems to be a bit of a trend now to have the ferro rod attached to your sheath.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've never preferred the little dinky ones anyway.
So and you need a very perpendicular grind on the back of your blade, which is actually really uncomfortable on your thumb.
Yeah.
So if you're holding the knife like that to
I've never really found a knife which is very good with a ferro rod, as you say, unless you alter it yourself, unless you take a grinder to it, but then you're damaging the integrity of the steel, aren't you, by doing that? Yeah. So it's probably not a good idea anyway, but no, it's worked out well. Right, let me ask you another question, because we got away there. So, we were talking about your evolution, and you were describing, the way you make your knives, and it reminds me when my son was younger. For whatever reason, we loved watching Forged in Fire. You must and I think what I liked about that was the fact that you can take, steel, bits of sort of leftover steel and turn, a bit of a work of art out from something like that. So hearing you talking about your knife making journey there, where you sort of became interested in blades, it just took me right back to watching that with my boy. We just used to be amazed that they'd use these bits and pieces and end up with this fantastic knife at the end,
Yeah.
So how's the business going?
Business is, with how the world works at the moment with social media and an edged tool, it's quite difficult.
Of course, yeah, because it gets sort of filtered out, does it?
Well, you can't advertise. You can't. What's the word for it? So you can't advertise on a Meta platform. So you might. So it's so social's a bit of a difficult thing. The way to getting things out in the open seems to be talking to people like yourself. Yeah. And reviews from favourable reviews, because it is a good product. I'm issuing products to people, and I'm saying that there it is. Review it. If I'm not saying to them, there's an incentive there to review.
No, I mean, it must be very difficult. I mean, I have to say, my channel, it's all about integrity, so I've never taken, I'm only a small channel anyway. I think it's about 26,000 people, but I never take money. I only ever review products in genuine faith and in integrity. And that's why I have no quibble then about saying, actually, this wasn't the best bit of kit I've ever used. Yeah. It's always a delight when you do review a bit of kit and you think, crikey, this is really good. It's so nice. I don't actually do negative reviews. If I get something which is not very good, I just don't review it. I'll return it, and we just don't have that conversation then. Yeah. But it's great to have had that one, because it was genuinely one of the best knives I've had to use in any, and I love bushcrafting. It's something I've done. I was an air cadet as a kid. I was in the military and stuff like that. So I've always appreciated the value of that piece of steel, in situations where it can be the difference between comfort and discomfort. Yeah. Or life and death in certain situations. The thing is
when you've handled lots of knives, you actually realise what's a good one, what's a bad one, quite quickly. Yeah. Quite often someone's go, oh, can you sharpen? Oh, you know about knives. Can you sharpen this knife I've got here? And they're like sharp on the, reprofiling a bevel as a favour. And you can't get an edge on it. And you're like, this is just, you might as well just weigh this one in and get something new.
Yeah, well, that's what people do, isn't it, these days? Yeah. I was in the Bushcraft show the other day, and there were some knives there which were £1,000, and they're like fantastic Damascus and all this sort of thing. But you're thinking, crikey, are you ever going to use it? It's too precious to take out. Yeah. And that's what I like about your piece.
Well, that's what I was aiming for.
It's within a price point where you don't have to baby it. You can actually put it to its intended purpose.
Yeah, and it will stand up to that.
It does. So what's the vision then? Where are we going with Fitzroy knives?
Well, I'd like to, if any of your viewers are experts in internet marketing, they can get me some.
I'm sure there's a few out there.
Can get me around some of the algorithm issues. I'd love to hear from them. The ideal next thing is I'm probably going to look at moving manufacture to the United States, because most of the sales have actually been in the United States. Because I've got
they do love their knives over there, don't they?
I've got a friend out there who did some in Utah who did some of the images. You probably saw them on the website.
Very nice too.
Yeah, and he said, Overland Journal are looking for products to review. If you said, an Overland Journal did a nice tiny little review, and they must have such a big readership. And the orders were blue. I was like, whoa,
wow.
sat there.
You got the bounce
great,
quickly, did you?
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing. I just need to keep the brand going, push it out there. The idea that I'd quite like to do is there's a small manufacturer in America that's manufacturing a couple of custom knife makers production models, and they do much smaller runs, so you could choose. You could maybe a bit more custom, so you could say, well, I want a red McCarter handle,
right.
or I want an acid wash, or a different. So you could
Nice.
maybe have some options.
Yeah.
But that's stuff for the future. At the moment, I'm still very much with this model, and
yeah, well, it's a lovely piece.
Going that way.
It'll be great to see the journey unfold. You're not planning on any new models or anything, or are you just happy with what we've got?
Yeah, I'd quite like to do a folder,
Yeah,
and I'd like to do a bigger knife.
yeah.
So as a more
Well, I'd be definitely interested in your folding knife.
Yeah.
I'm using a Heine Haynes at the moment.
Oh, yeah?
Because I just like knives with a clip.
And
It's a legal carry.
That's
so
the UK legal.
I can carry it around.
Can I have a look?
Yeah, certainly.
'cause-
They're only like under £20.
Yeah,
and you've got a
they're
little
great,
sort of little scissors on there, little
Yeah.
blade on there. It's what I tend to need for
Yeah,
opening,
that's fantastic, isn't it?
opening sort of boxes and cutting
Yeah,
the odd cucumber and things
Well,
like
I've got
that.
the same. I've got like a 30-year-old that was given to me, little Warncliffe, Sheffield Warncliffe, with rosewood handles.
Oh,
It's,
nice.
and it's just in your pocket.
Yeah, it's lovely.
UK legal carry, and
That's the key, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, if you can keep it within the legal carry sort of zone, I think that would be a market changer, because
Yeah.
there's not really a lot of good stuff out there in the UK. The open L's and stuff like that, but they are showing their age. I know they're heritage and traditional, but they're not as...
I've snapped a few of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're partially made of wood, so
Yeah.
their actual application of them isn't really as good as their reputation, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it would be great to see something else on the market which has that British stamp on it, I think, as well.
Yes, that's sort of. I'm looking at designs of that, and then maybe a larger, more sort of forest.
like a proper field knife.
Yeah.
That's good. No axes.
No axes. There's plenty of people doing axes really well.
They charge so much money for them as well, don't they?
Yeah.
They're outrageous. Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, thanks for the chat, Mackenzie.
Yeah, no worries.
I mean, what I would say to people is, I mean, I've really put that knife through its paces. It's been 2 weeks, every day, using it constantly, and I cannot find fault with it. I mean, I like its sort of slightly left of centre styling. Some of the things I like about it, I like the little bit of jimping on the back of the blade.
Yeah.
It just orients the hand when you're holding it, and it fits so snugly. I mean, I've got a sort of medium-sized hand, and it's such a lovely grip on it when you're sort of processing fat wood and processing firewood.
And yours is the McCarter handle, isn't it?
The Hessian McCarter.
Yeah,
it's a lovely grip.
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
got it's very
texture
grippy.
is it gives you a good sensation.
Yeah, this one's this is the G10,
G10.
which has got the micro. You probably can't pick up from those. It's got the micro textures on it.
Yeah.
So that also.
I'll sling a few pictures up as we're talking about this for the viewers to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I say, I mean, I can only advocate for it. I mean, I've not been paid to have this conversation. I invited Mackenzie here really because he offered the...
It's green woodpecker, is it?
Probably, there's all sorts of stuff up here. He offered the knife as a working sample to utilise during this period I've been camping here, and it's exceeded my expectations. So we heard all about the journey of the Fitzroy knife, how it came into being, from the man who designed it and put that process in motion himself, Mackenzie. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation on the journey of the knife which I've been using for the last 2 weeks here at Oak Camp, and it's been a pretty good little performer, let me tell you that. So, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button. If you'd like to add something to the dialogue, leave it in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, you can either buy me a coffee or even become a Patreon. And my patrons get additional video content, and you will see their names at the end of the video. So until the next time, take care, use your knife for the best possible effect in the outdoors, keep the edge sharp, and the world will be a happy place. I will see you again very soon.